Yo, what is up? You have found We Like the Blazers. I am Brandon Goldner, and with me, next to me, virtually, not in real life, but across the screen, across the universe, in a totally different state, city, county, possibly even country, I don't know, but it is Ryan Whitledge. What's up, dude?
Not much. Just got back from the fun long weekend camping trip, so that was I'm just staring at a pile of stuff that needs to be unpacked and put away, but nobody has any effort or energy to even attempt to do that.
That's actually a big debate, is like, are you the kind of person that gets home and unpacks everything right away and cleans out the backpack and puts it all in its place, or do you like kind of just like, I'm going to decompress for a while?
We're the I'm going to decompress for a while kind of people, and just this is how bad it is that when we went on our Arizona trip a month ago, 2 months ago, I don't know, spring break, a month ago, when we got home, we set the suitcase off in its little corner of the bedroom or whatnot. In order to pack for this camping trip, I had to take things out of that suitcase. So
classic. Yeah, I think there's no wrong way to do it. I like to get everything out, and just because it, like, if I don't do it, then it's just not gonna get done. It's like I have a problem lately. It's been getting worse where I'm really good at doing the laundry, not so good at folding the laundry, and so it just sort of remains in this kind of clean clothes hamper, and then I'll fold like a little bit of it, and I'm like, ugh. And like, I don't know what my problem is. Like, it's not like it's hard to fold laundry. I don't know.
I don't like putting the laundry away. I will wash clothes, I will dry clothes, I will fold them all, and I will make them into nice, neat piles, and there they stay.
It's funny you go so far as to actually fold them, but then after that, it's like, nope.
Yeah, not doing anything. And then the wife's always like, why are you half-assing this? I'm like, I don't know. Hey, maybe you put it away.
That's like three-quarters assing it. That's not, I think that's more than half-assing. I think what I'm doing is a full half-ass. It's like, you've cleaned them, you've dried them, you've gotten them out, you've separated your stuff from someone else's stuff, and then that's it. That's about halfway. I think you're like three-quarters, so you should get credit for that.
My biggest thing is that, like, I'm simple. Like, I have a tiny section of the closet and one side of the dresser. I couldn't even, if you were to pay me $1 million to go and try to guess where some of her things are put away, I couldn't tell you. Could not tell you.
I'm getting better at that, and it's weird how hard it is to know. She'll be like, hey, can you get my stuff out so I can work out in the morning and then get my scrubs ready for work? And it's like, I should know probably, because I've done this probably a couple dozen times, and I'm saying, well, is this the right drawer? Does this one have the workout clothes in it, or is this like, it's embarrassing. But you know what's not embarrassing? What's not embarrassing is how the Blazers played in Game 4. How's that for a transition?
There you go.
Yeah.
You should get paid to do this professionally with segues like that.
Instead of me paying the website domain place and the podcast place and paying for my equipment and for new software. Yeah, I'm paying myself to do this. I'll tell you that much. But yeah, the Blazers, they showed up in Game 4. They evened the series at 2-2 with the Denver Nuggets with that 115-95 win. We are running without notes today because that's just how we're rolling. Let me ask you this, and we did not talk about this pre-show. Do you even want to talk about Game 3? Because you and I went to that in person, which is super fun, but it wasn't so fun, the outcome. But do you want to get into that at all?
I think we can touch on it because there was a lot of stuff that you and I, as we're sitting there watching the game, we're commenting on and wondering if this was going to be a change. And Stotts made or stuck with a lot of those changes to start off Game 4, and I think that was played a big role in how that game was those two games were so drastically different.
Well, why don't we start there, and I'll put you on the spot then. So for Game 3, the Blazers obviously dropped that at home. What was it during that game that you saw? Because like during the game, I was kind of getting upset, and I was like, tell me what adjustments they've made since Game 2, right? And you pointed a few out, and like you just said, I think Stotts probably heard you from up in the 300 level and incorporated those into Game 4. So what was happening in that Game 3 that you didn't like, and then what kinds of things were you calling for to change in Game 4? Let's just start there.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest complaint that all of Blazer land has had has been the playing of Melo and Cantor together, especially if you're going to, Anthony Simons has taken a lot of leaps and bounds here at the tail end of the season and in the postseason to be better on defense, but definitely playing Melo and Cantor together. And when you were yelling, you're like, why is Cantor in here? He's just getting roasted. What changes has Stotts made? And I pointed it out to you. I said, Cantor's in there with the starters, as opposed to Melo being the first guy off, or both of them coming in at the same time, or Anthony having already checked in. Stotts was trying to maintain some level of like defensive cohesiveness for as much as the first unit has by, I'm going to play Cantor more with some of these starters. Didn't work. They immediately gave up a 14-0 run. The other wrinkle then is that Cantor then only played 6 minutes that game, and going into Game 4, Cantor played 3 minutes of garbage time. So, and we saw Rondé Hollis-Jefferson get a real go at it. He's not like this all-world stopper, but it's a difference. And I think what people get confused about when they watch games, and especially with Stotts, and they hear the narrative that, oh, he doesn't adjust, oh, he doesn't do this, oh, he doesn't do that. You don't get wholesale, we're going to change 4 different things in a game, because it's kind of like a science experiment. If you're trying to figure out what works and what doesn't, you don't change all the variables at once. There are those little benchmarks of like, I'm going to try this wrinkle. Okay, that didn't work. Let me try this, and kind of moving through it.
I think what you just described is maybe a very generous take on Stotts's, maybe the fact that he's slow to adjust. And that was my gripe, that the adjustment to get Cantor's ass off the floor in Game 3, when it was immediately, it was very obvious that he was a large part of the reason why the Blazers blew a lead and then were down double digits to end the first quarter in Game 3, was because of Cantor. It wasn't all his fault. And so my gripe, what I would say is, I hear what you're saying about you have to control one thing at a time, and if you want to figure out what works, you can't just do everything, because then how can you control for it? I guess my gripe with Terry Stotts, particularly in Game 3, the adjustment was very obvious. Make it sooner. Like, you don't have a lot of time with some of this stuff in the playoffs. Like, you need to, if something is very clearly not working, you need to just go ahead and change it. And like, by the way, you mentioned that Cantor in Game 3 in that first stint was like, a minus 14 in just a couple of minutes. You think, first of all, I think you should have been pulled quicker than that, right? Like, you could have mitigated that run just by subbing in Rondé Hollis-Jefferson, maybe, 6 points in, 8 points in. But the second thing is, Cantor came back and played again. I think the only reason why Cantor didn't play more in that game is because he got a flagrant foul. And I don't know if that got Stotts to thinking. Like, obviously he was still eligible to play. He wasn't ejected or anything. So I don't know. Like, I think that your read on it is a generous read. I think it's fair. I guess my gripe would be, I wish that adjustment would have come sooner. So,
well, yeah, and I agree with that. Yeah, he rode that out a little too long, and you look no further than the box score itself. I mean, when Cantor came in, the Nuggets immediately went on that 14, 15-point run, and you go and look at the box score. Denver wins the first quarter 39-30. The Blazers win or tie all subsequent following quarters.
Yeah.
So the game, you can legitimately say that the game was lost at that 5-minute and 44-second mark when Cantor checked in.
So let's talk about another thing from Game 3 that then carried into Game 4. I think we could talk about this stuff in the context of the game that they won in Game 4 in a little bit, but it was the minutes that Jokic was playing and Nurk was not on the court. Right? Because that is what precipitated the run, with Cantor being in there and Nurkic not being there. So that's another thing that a lot of people had been calling for. Why are you not mirroring Jokic's minutes with Nurkic, who through the first couple of games was leading the team in individual plus minus, something like 7 or 8 points better with Nurkic on the floor through the first couple of games. So even through the first couple of games before Game 3, you could be like, well, gee, if you get Nurkic on the floor with Jokic and just mirror the minutes, that might help. Like, I understand he fouled out in Games 2 and Games 3, but, not having Nurkic on the floor when Jokic is on the floor, if the Blazers want to win the series, they just can't. I don't think that they can have even one single minute with Jokic being on the floor without Nurkic, unless Nurk has fouled out. I don't know what you feel about that.
Yeah, and that's one of the things, too, that I was calling for, back to, everybody having their discussions and Monday morning quarterbacking it on Twitter and whatnot. One of my biggest things is like, all right, well, the biggest change that you have to make is that Nurk needs to mirror Jokic. And you're going to hope that Nurk can tire Jokic out more than Nurk would get tired himself in playing extended minutes, playing that extra, 5, 6, 7 minutes a game that he's normally not used to playing. So, and for all intents and purposes, it seemed to work out beautifully in Game 4.
Yeah, no, I think so too. There was one more thing I want to point out from Game 3 since we're talking about it, and I want to hear what else you have to pull from that too.
Have you gotten your White Claw yet? Are you still in line?
Oh my
or are you
Lord.
Still waiting?
Let's talk about that really quick. So, hey, COVID protocols, the Blazers want you to pre-order your food and drink through the Trailblazers app. Makes perfect sense. You put the order in, you pay for it, you go 5 minutes later, and your drink or your food is sitting right there, right? Nope, because I ordered a mango White Claw, a 16.9 ounce mango White Claw, Ryan, and I know that you were making fun of me pretty heavy for that, and I don't blame you, but I ordered it at 5 minutes to go in the second quarter, something like that?
Yep.
And I left, and I was in line. I didn't come back to my seat until 8 minutes left in the third quarter. So I missed an entire quarter of playoff basketball waiting for this mango White Claw. Here's what I have to say. I will keep this brief.
Hold on real quick. And the beauty of it is that I got up, went and stood in line and ordered myself food and drink and walked past you still standing in line after I got my stuff and made it back to my seat in time for the third quarter. I was done with my food by the time you got back.
I was so pissed at you for that. It was and you were very cool about it. You weren't rubbing it in my face or anything, but you looked a little smug walking by me both times.
Oh, damn straight,
yeah,
damn straight.
For sure. I won't go on too much about that, but here's what I'll say is that I have a lot of empathy for the staff who are trying to work through that, because clearly this was a software inventory glitch. They were out of a whole bunch of stuff. They were out of the mango White Claw. They were out of the Modelo. And so people, not everybody had food. They had to prepare. It was literally it could have just been you grab it and put it on the counter and wait for the person to come. They ran out. And so props to the staff a lot of people were getting very angry. I was trying my best to remind people that, we're still experimenting with COVID stuff and it's not their fault. And a lot of other people also were very understanding. A couple people were angry. So shout out to the staff. They were doing their best. And one staff actually pulled a couple of us aside and we walked to, I think, to the Pines, and she was able to grab some from their inventory. I eventually got my mango White Claw. Was it worth it? No, it wasn't at all. I mean, again, you missed an entire quarter of playoff basketball when it's they're just allowing fans back in the building, and so that was kind of a bummer. So, okay, that was something I observed. Here was something else I observed. I had said in Game 3 we need to be limiting Melo's minutes more. It was interesting in that fourth quarter in Game 3 when the Blazers were down, and then they went on that run in large part due to Melo. It was interesting to note, I think you pointed it out, that Melo was actually supposed to check out of the game right before he went on that little microburst. I think Norm Powell was waiting, and I think that you said that Melo waved Powell off. I will say this too. Norm Powell didn't look super stoked about that. I don't know if you caught that.
No, he didn't. But, I mean, at the same time, that's kind of where the Melo legacy. I don't think you're going to get a lot of players doing that to many other guys, but Melo's been around long enough. I mean, I can't think of a better way to say it, so I'm just going to say it this way, and I completely understand how asinine it sounds. Melo doing that to Norman Powell is no different than LeBron James doing that to any other teammate or whatnot, if he was going to go sit down, kind of thing. And you can understand why I'm trying to preface that this is a very asinine thing to say, but I'm just using it as the legacy. Best
player in the NBA, and the other one is not.
Yeah, the other one's named LeBron James.
Oh my! I see what you're saying though, because obviously Melo has a lot of respect from players. He has a lot of cred. I get that. I thought it was interesting that Melo then went on that tear that he did immediately after that. But then Melo stayed on the court when the Blazers desperately needed some stops. I rewatched some of the tape, some of the footage from Game 3 at the end of the game where Nurkic fouled out, and then you had Robert Covington trying to guard Jokic. And so then the most important thing with that is, what's the off-ball help doing? If you're gonna pretend to double or show that you're gonna double and then pull it back, then you need to be quick to rotate create. If Jokic is going to pass to somebody, you need to be quick to go contend. Well, guess what? Carmelo Anthony's not particularly good at lateral movement and contending on defense, right? So it's like to have someone in there like a Rondae Hollis Jefferson may have made a big difference. There was one play in particular where Jokic got the ball with Rocco on him, and Melo is like in the paint, and he literally looks like he sleepwalks towards Jokic, which leaves Melo's man open. I forgot if it was either Michael Porter Jr. or Aaron Gordon open directly under the hoop for a dunk. And it's like that wouldn't have happened with Rondae Hollis Jefferson on the floor. So I guess I'm not saying that like leaving Melo in for that long was the reason why the Blazers lost Game 3. I don't think that's true, but I think in general, I was after Game 3 calling for less Melo, and I think I stand by that, even though they won Game 4 in pretty convincing fashion.
Yeah, and one of the other bigger adjustments I saw from Game 3 to Game 4 is that there was the concerted effort. I don't know. It's driving me nuts. I can't remember the guy's name. It's in my head that it's Kirk Kingsbury, but I could be wrong. But he does all like. Yeah, there we go. The guy with the shot charts or whatnot. If you go back and look at his of Jokic, because he came out and put him out for the star players for all the playoff teams. Jokic, everything for him is straight down the middle. If you get him on the edge of the court, that's when he's not as efficient. But if you get him, draw a straight line from the hoop to the freaking center court, anywhere in that, he is fantastic. And I noticed a little bit that the Blazers were starting to like show or hedge a little more with their help defense on him if he caught in that straight line. They were fine with him out on the elbows. They were fine with him on the angles or whatnot, but you start seeing help defenders kind of step off their man a little bit. Not fully committing to the double team, but kind of hedging towards that way to make him second guess or something, or try to maybe even force him into, the double team's coming, and try to get him to pass, in which then you already got a guy halfway there, steal, open transition, dunk.
Yep. I think that's fair. So let's actually, is there anything left from Game 3, or do you just want to kind of dip into Game 4 now? Because that
depends on if you want to fall back into the trap of shitting on the refs and half blaming the refs. But
sure, there, whatever. That wouldn't have made the difference in the game. No. In Game 3, I think that, and also, let's be fair, the Nuggets hit some shots that they're not normally going to hit. Austin Rivers, you got the Austin Rivers, he looks like an NBA player moment. Yeah. Good for him. That's going to happen sometimes.
Yeah. It is in the game plan to let Austin Rivers shoot. So I'm just, that would be every other playoff team's game plan against the Nuggets. And it just so happened he hit him.
Yeah. And so to your point about how they're defending Jokic and transitioning to Game 4, which is a much more fun game to talk about, which I got to go to with my girlfriend Cassie. It was awesome. Ton of fun. It was over a couple minutes in the third quarter. Another thing the Blazers did start doing with Jokic too is on screens, and this is again tough to do without stuff in front of me, so I'm going off the top of my head so you can tell me if I am wrong about this. But they were literally just letting the ball handler, the non-Jokic player, have whatever they wanted, and they were like, Nurkic, don't move from Jokic. Like, don't even pretend to. Just stay there, stay home. Like, make Denver's guards, who are not particularly good shooters, to your point, let them do whatever they want, and just take it away from Jokic in those pick-and-roll situations.
Yep, I saw that too. And one of the other things that kind of stood out to me, I mean, especially just looking back at the box score, the Aaron Gordon and Michael Porter Jr. combining for 9 points is not something that is probably going to happen again. We keep it's always the what's sustainable, what's unsustainable, or whatnot. But them combining, to grand total shoot 3 of 10 for 9 points, probably not going to happen. But Michael Porter Jr. Yesterday in one of his press things said that he feels he needs to be more aggressive and that you're going to get a different showing out of him in Game 5. And I'm not going to lie, Michael Porter Jr. is the one I want saying that because he is the streakiest of those two. Right. Aaron Gordon is a little more proven of a player, but Michael Porter Jr., he has the ability to both shoot Denver into a game and out of a game. And so if he's going to put his head down and try to take a shots for one, okay, that's less shots for Jokic. And for two, I mean, take a buttload and miss a buttload, hopefully.
Right. And also, though, to be fair, like part of the reason why, for example, Michael Porter Jr. only got 3 shot attempts the entire game was because of how it's being guarded. And I think that a lot of that has to do with Robert Covington. His defensive impact was huge. Norm Powell in particular. And I think it's hard to talk about this game without maybe starting with either individual player, either Nurkic or Norm Powell. Let's give credit to Norm Norm Powell. This is the Norm Powell game. He really, really looked like he gave a shit in a way that was visible from where I was sitting, very far from the court, right? Like, offensively, defensively. And something that you and I actually talked about in person during Game 3 was that Norm Powell, like, he is the player on the Blazers who has some modicum of ball handling ability, who will just do stuff that feels kind of frenetic or erratic, or will just kind of punch in there really quickly, unexpectedly, kind of jaggedly. Like, CJ's very smooth, Dame is very meticulous, and he's a slower paced player. But like Norm Powell, like, he can just jab in there, and like that's a combination of skill and energy, which I think really, really helps the Blazers in this series. So I don't know. Yeah, it just, and all the Norm Powell stars kind of aligned during this game.
Yeah, exactly. And for him to, I loved it too, because you could see Norm isn't one that you don't see a lot of smiles on his face. It looks like he does very much like internalize the game or whatever, and like he plays with this complete, like, kind of fuck you mentality. And so to see him 2 or 3 different times over the game, he'd come up with a big shot, or he gets an and one or whatnot, and he's just looping around and doing his freaking flex and whatever. That's how I think I saw him crack a smile once. I'm like, all right, now he's into it. Now he's checked in. Now he's invested. And it's also good I think it's good for everybody up and down the roster to kind of have a game like that, especially in early playoff series, because that just provides all the more confidence. I mean, like, we've been talking about, like, hey, would Norman Powell stay? What's his role if he's not getting his touches? Well, great. He just saw what he can do in this offense.
Right.
And I think that 29 points, that was a playoff career high for him.
I think
I'm not mistaken. So
tied it.
Or tied
yes,
it?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, you're right. And, like, that's the kind of thing, like, there has been no reporting to this effect, but it would not shock me if after Game 3, if Damian Lillard, if CJ McCollum, if someone came up to Norm and tapped him and just said, hey, like, do your thing. Like, we need you to do your thing, because if the Blazers can put that much pressure on a not very good Denver defense, that helps them a lot, right? Like, just having, that was the whole thing going into this series, where the Blazers have more options than the Nuggets do. And so when Norm Powell plays like that, it's sort of like a proof of concept that you can get that from a player like him. And sort of the other side of that coin is Damian Lillard going 1 for 10 with 10 points in a game that the starters effectively won by 30. I know the Blazers won by 20 points, but during the competitive portion of the game, the Blazers were up by about 30 points. Do you have any thoughts or concerns, or maybe the opposite? Are you encouraged by the fact that our teams, the Blazers, we could say our team's best player, we're part of the team too.
Collective pronouns, Mike Richmond. There you go.
Anyway, I'll leave that aside. Do you have any concerns, or maybe you're encouraged by the fact that Damian Lillard, the team's best player, he only made 1 shot in this game, and yet the Blazers won by so much? Like, is that just sort of like, is that one way or the other? Do you take anything from that?
Well, it's a fun little dichotomy, because I mean, you compare Dame's box score to Jokic's box score, and everybody's talking about how Jokic played so poorly and he was so limited and whatnot. Box score wise, he's got a much better game than Damian Lillard. But the funny thing is that I was sitting there watching that game, and so yes, I was camping, but it is one of those campsites that does have like the activity room or whatnot. So I did wander in there and take over the TV and had the entire activity room to myself for watching the game on TV. But
good man.
But no, Jokic, when you watch the game and you're putting it to the eye test, you can tell Jokic played like crap. Every time that the broadcast reminded me that Dame had only made 1 field goal, or had yet to make a field goal, or was 0 for 7, I could not have told you that was the case, because he was literally just setting the table and using his presence to bend the will, to open up the floor for guys like Norm and everybody else to do what they were doing. And so I don't view it wasn't a bad Dame game. Box score wise, numbers wise, stats wise, yeah, sure, he didn't put up, but he did exactly what he needed to do so his teammates could succeed. And that's what you want from your star players. You want them to make the team better, make the players around them better. And then, if need be, last second shots, those kind of things. Dame did what he needed to do, and he put his teammates in a position to win this game by, I know it says 20 points, but it's 30-point blowout because up until the garbage time. But yeah.
I will say this, though, and credit to Denver, because there were a number of shots that I saw that were very clearly not like Lillard-esque. These kind of like mid-range shots. He's being chased off the three-point line and also can't get to the rim, and so he like pushes up a floater or a mid-range where it's like, that's like a CJ McCollum-like kind of move and not something that we see as much from Damian Lillard. And also, like, they're not all going to fall out the way that they did. Like, even if you force Dame into those kinds of shots, like on most nights he's going to make more of them. On the other side, and you mentioned it, also, Jokic is going to make a large handful more shots than he did tonight. I mean, I kept looking over at Cassie and being like, holy shit, the Blazers are lucky he missed again. Like, he was wide open, or he was shooting over the top like he always does, and Jokic's shots weren't falling. But so I think maybe credit to Denver for putting Dame in a scoring position that he would prefer not to be in many different times. But you're right. The real kind of like the real takeaway from that is the Blazers have more weapons than Denver does. So you can take Dame out of the game, and it shouldn't matter. Like, the Blazers should win these games. They should be able to score more points. They are the more talented team in the series, and they're not always going to win by 30, but that was, that was something that I saw.
Yeah, and so I'm curious to see what his mentality, what his carryover for Game 5 is going to be. And little weird thing on the schedule, like I know they got the full travel day for Game 5, but they're going back to just the every other day.
Yeah.
For 6 and 7 if need be? Okay.
Yep.
All right. That's weird. I thought they were going to maintain doing the 2 days, but all right.
I think I heard that it's true in the Lakers-Suns series where they don't have a lot of time for AD to recover or for Chris Paul to recover, where it's like they're playing more frequently than they normally would because they're trying to compress the schedule down in order to get back on track for next year, right? I think is part of the thinking. But we haven't even talked really about Nurk yet. And look, like, Nurkic, it was so fun watching him play in Game 4. Man, it was so fun watching him play in Game 4.
Oh, yeah.
He was so fucking locked in. It was unreal.
And he is such a ham for the crowd, too. It's
great. It's great. The crowd is better Game 4. Winning helps, but the crowd was just generally better. I saw Covington was doing this. Nurk was doing this. I'm waving my hand to pump up the crowd, but you're right. He loves it. But the biggest thing, there's a lot you could talk about with credit to Terry Stotts for matching Nurkic's minutes to Jokic perfectly. So they both ended up playing the entire first quarter. And I thought, by the way, it was an interesting look that we know that Damian Lillard always plays the entire first quarter. It was interesting to see Dame and Nurk in the first quarter the entire time together. It was just, I don't know, it was very fun to see. But there's a lot you can take away from Nurk, but the biggest thing for me was his discipline. He was absolutely disciplined in how he was playing defense on Jokic. He knew that he couldn't foul out. He got a couple of fouls that I don't think should have been called on him. He got one where he got his hands tangled up, but for the most part, he was keeping his hands visible. He was staying where he needed to stay. He wasn't doing dumb shit. Like, he was really, really disciplined, and that is what makes Nurkic the Blazers' second best player when he plays like that.
Completely agree, because the biggest, I mean, the Blazers were within reach for Game 3, but as soon as Nurk fouled out, we all knew that comeback wasn't happening. And
I tweeted out immediately. I said, "Game over." Nurk fouled out. Game over.
Yeah, and you see him do these stupid things like where when he falls on the floor, he is literally reaching up and hitting somebody, and when he's undisciplined like that, and again, he's such an emotional player too that just feeds into it, because then he's frustrated by, okay, well, hey, why is there no whistle on this end, but there is over here, kind of Dame had tried to earn himself a fine by alluding to similar things, but and it's all this cascading failure of then Nurk's frustrated, so he's not as disciplined anymore, and he's committing even stupider fouls and like that, and it's just like this echo chamber of bad Nurk until there's no more Nurk in the game.
Let me point something out at you. saying it kind of it triggered my memory that. Again, I don't know if this has been reported, but it looked to me that the Blazers were very explicitly trying not to react to the foul calls this game. And there was one play in particular I remember very distinctly where Robert Covington was called for a foul when he shouldn't have been, and he immediately kind of put his hands on his head, and then almost as quickly as he did that, you saw almost as if like a warm blanket of serenity had been gently laid across his head, and he just went calm. And like that happened a couple different times. I think the Blazers talked about it before the game. They were like, we cannot react to the foul calls because it doesn't do any good and it puts us in a bad headspace. I would not be surprised if that were the case because it looked like it.
Well, and they did it appropriately in the media after Game 3, especially. I thought Dame for sure was going to get fined with him talking about like, hey, I mean, every time we do anything, it's automatically a foul, but they can get away with anything. I thought he was getting fined for that. A couple other players had came out with comments along those lines, but it is one of those things where if you kind of come off as a whiny, petulant child.
Right.
Yelling, oh, what the hell, you're not as likely to get rewarded for it, on the court. And you're not helping your team by giving the other guys a 5-on-4 fast break.
That's right. Yeah. One more thing about Nurkic I wanted to point out. We had mentioned a little bit ago about his individual plus minus, which I am generally, I keep saying this and now it's going to lose all meaning. I generally am not a huge fan of that stat to say that someone's having an impact or not, but it's so perfectly matching the eye test that I'm just using it. Nurk, through the first 3 games, was leading the team, and I'm trying to remember, I think it was something like a +9 in the minutes that he played through 3 games. Well, Nurkic was a +32 in game 4. So he's something like a +15 when he's on the floor, and a little that is pulled out of proportion because of how much the Blazers won by in game 4. But Ryan, here's my hot take about Nurkic. If the Blazers continue to mirror his minutes with Nikola Jokic, the Blazers will win this series. Period. I think it's as simple as that. The Blazers are playing better. They are playing better than the Nuggets when Nurkic is on the floor. Jokic is not having the same impact for the Nuggets as Nurkic is for the Blazers, which you can parse that out a little bit, and that's maybe not actually true. But it not only does it feel true, this one specific stat that supports my preconceived opinion also says that it's true. So I'm going to say that it's just great.
Well, I mean, and one of the other things, too, to look at and what kind of gives you a little bit of, hope or promise or whatnot is that, in the 2 losses to the Nuggets, I mean, game 2... probably the biggest disparity, but game 3, it's been close games, and they've had the ability to win every single game, even the ones that they've lost. I don't feel that way about the Nuggets' 2 losses.
Yep.
So what are you looking? What? I
had a mouthful of ice. Sorry about that.
Yeah, that's fine.
Did I say already that my AC has been out for way too long and I'm just sweating? I'm basically...
You told me that.
Well, I'm telling all you that, and I am spoiled. I used to not have AC for a long time, and I was fine, and now I've had it for, it's been between 2 different places for about 6 or 7 years, and now I'm melting. We're on the top unit, and the heat from the other 2 units by this time of day, it's rotten. Sorry, you were saying.
I turned my AC off that's been running all day and keeping my house nice and perfectly chilled. I turned it off because I didn't want the fan to annoy you through the microphone.
Oh, well, you do a good enough job annoying me anyway, so an extra fan's not going to hurt anything. No,
I was going looking ahead to Game 5. What wholesale adjustments does Terry Stotts need to make? Obviously, bench Damian Lillard, C.J. McCollum. He can be 6 man, and we're going to start C.J. Ellaby.
Yeah, that's right. Because that you had. Let's see, T.J. Leaf got in there for a couple buckets. Yeah, no. So the biggest thing for looking forward to Game 5, which is tomorrow, because this pod will come out tonight. The mirroring Nurk's minutes to Jokic has got to continue. The way that the Blazers are playing Jokic has got to continue. The Blazers can't get rattled if the Denver's guards start hitting a couple shots. That's going to happen. And I think probably the biggest thing is Norman Powell just has to continue being super, super disruptive. Again, it's a wholesale change in energy that you can feel. It's palpable, and it really, really helps. It also, that kind of stuff allows Dame to take plays off and to get some wind, because he's been playing, up until this last game, been playing like 40 plus minutes a game. So he needs some rest, right? So yeah, I don't know, man. Like, I will say, and I'll turn the question back to you, but I'll lead it in with this. Just before we jumped on air, Jason Quick, who is a reporter with The Athletic, obviously he's been covering the Blazers for a long time, he reported that Damian Lillard is telling the team that Game 5 is the game, that this is the game, the one coming up tomorrow, that they have to get it. I appreciated the reporting Jason did, because he dug deeper and got to the fact that Damian Lillard, as a leader, he doesn't often just spew hyperbole and we got to go get him every single game. Like, he's not 100 miles an hour all the time. He picks his spots as a leader, when and where to say things like that. And he took this opportunity to say that, because I agree with Dame. I think whoever wins tomorrow wins the series. I do think that.
Yeah, and part of a bigger quote of his, and because I think that was just in his general media availability. So not to hate on Quick's reporting on that, but I think that was in the general Zoom call.
I'm trying to kiss Jason Quick's ass because I ragged on him so much a couple episodes ago, right? See what I'm doing?
Yeah, you're tired of having Blazer media personalities block you. I get it. No.
Oh man, I have another.
We are not. That is off air. You can fill me in on that. But Dame's full quote, he said, "This ain't a situation where we can be like, all right, lock in. We've got to have this game. We said that after game 1, came out in game 2 and got blasted. We've got to actually walk the walk with this one. This is a big one. I think everybody is on the same page with that. Tomorrow is the night."
I think that's right. And also, here's something kind of funny, too. A lot of people lambasted Coach Stotts a couple games ago for, during his media availability after game 2, basically saying, we don't really have to adjust. And people are like, oh, my God, what a terrible coach. Well, you know what Coach Malone for the Denver Nuggets said after game 4? He didn't talk about substantive adjustments. He just said, well, we got our asses kicked. We need to play with more energy, which is the kind of thing that people criticize Stotts for. Now, there will be adjustments that Denver makes. I don't expect Coach Stotts or Coach Malone to tell the media what those adjustments are. And so, as much as I don't think Stotts should have been criticized for saying something like that after game 2, I don't think Coach Malone should be criticized for saying something like that after game 4. But I do know the Nuggets are going to try something. Do you have any guesses as to what it might be? Because I've been trying to think, well, what is it they could do differently to try to get some, because it really does look like structurally the Blazers have the advantage here, it's to my eye. So I don't know, what do you think the Nuggets might try to do?
I think they're going to dip their toe back in the well of what got them success in game 2 and try to muck the game up a little bit. Part of what else Mike Malone said, just got to point that out. Mike Malone said is that they played soft and that they need to play harder. And Porter Jr. again is talking about that he wants to impose his will. So I think Denver knows that they do not necessarily have the personnel to keep up with the Blazers, but not all adjustments are X's and O adjustments that you see. There is some mind fuckery that goes on. So we saw that in game 2. You get the team super frustrated. You get them thinking that the refs are, they're playing against the refs too or whatnot, or they're getting frustrated and they're getting beat up. It can get into their head a little bit. So the Blazers, besides needing to stick to their on-paper game plan, need to have a lot of mental resilience and toughness in order to be ready for whatever Denver is going to try to throw at them, because I think that is going to be their biggest thing, is they're going to try to get in the Blazers' head.
I think that's right. And the good news, if you're a Portland fan, is the Blazers do have a number of players who can play that way. Like Damian Lillard he can manufacture fouls out of thin air, let alone if the team is trying to be aggressive. So if that's the way Denver wants to play, I think that Damian Lillard knows how to play like that and take advantage. I think the same of Norm Powell. The player you might worry about a little bit is Yusuf Nurkic. He can be rushed at times. He has shown that he can be rattled at at times. And I think that message of discipline, of really knowing what your game plan is and sticking to it, I think Nurkic has done a really good job of that in this series on the whole, and did a masterful job of that in game 4. So if Denver does try to muck it up and get dirty and start throwing stuff, I think that Jusuf Nurkic staying calm is going to be important. And look, if that means that Nurkic gets dunked on a couple times, he gets embarrassed a couple times, Jokic, pulls the chair on defense, or he, does a drop step on offense and spins around Nurkic and just kind of yams it in his face, Nurk has to stay calm. Nurk can't foul out of this game. Like, Nurkic has to be on the floor, right? So it's like, that's probably, if I were Denver, I agree with you. And that's like, it's not a tactical thing. It's an energy thing. It's just mucking it up. I think the Blazers could potentially see that.
One of the things I always find funny too is that we're coming into Game 5. There is absolutely, my that is one bet that I have now lost. My Blazers in 5 bet that is now off the table. But again, I only bet that because the odds were great. I didn't actually think that the Blazers would win in 5. I love all of the overreactions for every win and every loss on, oh my God, the Blazers, plan the parade now, to, oh my God, this team sucks, just blow it all up, start over again, when it's like 3 games in.
Yeah. And
because it's like, hey, how many games did you think this was going? Oh, I thought this would be a 7-game series. Okay, well, people got to lose some games to get to 7, right?
Exactly. I'm guilty of that prisoner of the moment stuff. But I will say that, like, to me, I'm saying it maybe too much, and maybe it's oversimplifying stuff, but Jusuf Nurkic is literally the key. His impact on both ends when he has been on the court has been undeniable. We have now seen, we have a sample size of, one game. If you have him on the court when Jokic is on the court, that's a good thing for the Blazers. Probably the things that I'd be worried about are, Jokic is going to shoot better. He just will. Some of those shots are going to fall. I'd also be concerned that the Nuggets bench continues to outperform the Blazers bench. I think it was something like in that first shift that the bench had, the Nuggets were a +6 in game 4. That's not quite as bad as being a +14 as they were in game 3. And I think that's probably, 4, 6, 2, something in there is a reasonable range. I don't think that that's too much, but that could be concerning. The good news about that, though, is that in the playoffs, you can play your best players 40-plus minutes, so you can really minimize the amount of time that you have to go to your bench. And I also think the Blazers have found something with Rondae Hollis-Jefferson. I know that his stats didn't jump out of the page for last game, but his impact was palpable. Having somebody who is mobile defensively, who knows what to do defensively, even if he is a 0 on offense, is a huge deal. It matters. And I think that the Blazers can look forward to that in game 5. I don't know if we've gotten to the point. We have a couple Twitter questions, but do you want to give predictions? Are we doing that? Like, what do you think's, if you were to guess, what do you think's going to happen in game 5?
I think this may actually be, I think this will be close. I think this will come down to last basket, last possession kind of thing. I think both teams know that this game matters. Every game matters, but know that this getting game 5 is important. You can't look at it as a 7-game series now. It's not. It's now a 3-game series, best of 3. So I mean, obviously, if whoever picks up game 5, they got 2 tries to get 1 win. But I think this is going to be a really close game within 2 to 3 points. I was just trying to look at what the line is for it, and I think it's currently Denver -1.5. So even Vegas, I think, has that being a little close. But that's where I'm at for game 5. And I don't lie. I don't think this series is going to get a game 7.
Interesting.
No matter who wins, I don't think it's getting a game 7.
I think I agree with you. I definitely agree that this is a little reductive. I think who wins this game tomorrow does win the series, whether it's in 6 or 7. I do think the Blazers win tomorrow. I don't think that the Nurkic stuff, I don't think that's a fluke. I think that's real. I think the numbers are truing up with the eye test on that. I think if the Blazers can keep Nurkic on the floor, I think they win the game. I think they win the series. The Blazers have more talent than the Nuggets. They just do. And but it's really, again, Damian Lillard said it's all about tomorrow. It's all about Game 5, and I hope that they do take that Game 7 mentality into this, because they really, really, really do need to win this game, and they've shown they can win in Denver, so it's not outside the realm of possibility. Okay, we will see what happens tomorrow, but a couple of Twitter questions really quick, and then we can get ourselves out of here. We have one from Diego at Migiante. It's at Magiante. Apologies if I mispronounced, but they ask, how can the Blazers improve the, quote, bench minutes? I have a thought about this, but I'm curious your thoughts. How can they make the bench minutes better?
I guess I'm going to need a little, like, context. Like what? Like, change who's in the bench, change players that are who's getting what minutes, or
it could
be, how do you take this? Because
it could be either of those things. I take it as if your one job was to get the Blazers bench minutes, to not give up, so many points, basically to play better, right? Not a -14, not a -6, but something like break even during the bench minutes. And that could be lineups, it could be tactics, but in your view, what could they do? And again, you can kick it to me too, because I do have a thought about this.
Great, because I got nothing. Because I mean, the biggest thing for
I think it's Rondae.
Yes.
I think that's
but you're not getting a lot of offense from him with that.
I don't think you need it. I don't think you need it. I get that. Look at this series with Enes Kanter, who's the person I'm suggesting to continue replacing all of his minutes with Rondae. It did happen in Game 4. I'm just saying keep it rolling. Enes was a 0 on defense. He was also a 0 on offense. So the fact that Rondae Hollis-Jefferson is a 0 on offense doesn't matter. Also, Enes Kanter doesn't really stretch the floor anyway. So the places where Enes Kanter would be on offense are going to be kind of clogging up the lane a little bit. You could argue that by the fact that Rondae at least is going to be hanging out in different areas of the court, that A, the Nuggets haven't game planned for that as much, and B, maybe it does somehow, even though he's not a shooter, maybe it does open up a little bit more space than it would with Kanter, who's also been a 0 on offense. So I don't know. That's my answer. It's very simple. It's Rondae.
Yeah, I agree with that. I was trying to think of things I did that I had not seen yet, so that is why I omitted the Rondae.
Well, I wanted to go with an easy answer that I knew I felt confident about.
Yeah, because other than that, it's just that the bench has to hit better shots. I mean, and I hate that. It's so cliche that you just got to make shots, you just got to get stops. It's such a cliche answer, but that's what it is. And the biggest like tactical adjustment or whatnot, or like individual player adjustment, I should say, outside of like the Rondae Hollis-Jefferson over Kanter, is just Melo. Catch and shoot Melo is the best Melo. Isolation Melo is shit Melo. And I don't care what the numbers say. I don't care that he's more efficient on post-ups and isolations than he is in catch and shoot situations. Just stop it. Just give me catch and shoot Melo so I don't have to keep yelling at my TV screen.
I will say this is sort of a weird argument against that, because I basically agree. But there is something, if your team, if you're up, let's say you're up by 8 or 10 points, and you are kind of blocking a comeback from the other team, how demoralizing is it for the other team when Melo gets the ball and just pounds the air out of it for 15 seconds, and you see the shot clock tick down to 4, 3, 2, and then he turns around with the hand in his face and hits some bullshit fadeaway jumper? That's demoralizing. And I'm not saying that has extra value, but like in my mind, like maybe it does. Like, I don't know. So I mostly agree with you though. There's a second question here from Triple Dog at Eric J. Also, I think that's your buddy, right? That's my
buddy. That's my buddy.
Eric asks, what would you like to tweet at Nurk to fire him up and make him call you out? Leave that with you, Ryan. What would you tweet at Nurk to fire him up and make him call you out?
I'm going to apologize for pronunciation on this because I will butcher it, but I will do my best. And it would be Jabenti Heblah.
What is that?
Fuck your beard.
Oh my God. That would piss me off.
Because I'm a lover of beards, but man, he's got a patchy beard and he's got some stuff to clean up. So there's my nicest tweet I could tweet at him to fire him up.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, making fun of someone's facial hair is always a solid choice. there have been some pictures of me from a couple years ago that have resurfaced because I resurfaced them, where I have some pretty terrible facial hair, and as you can see now, I don't have any facial hair because I cannot pull it off. What would I tweet at him to fire him up and make him call me out? I don't know. So this is a cop-out answer. I wouldn't, because Nurkic is playing about as well as you could possibly hope for him. Like, I wouldn't touch a thing. Whatever he's doing, whatever's happening, I love it. Keep it rolling. I'm like, for this series, he's going up against the presumptive MVP of the league. And it's not all Nurkic. Part of this is, Stotts' scheming and game plan and the player's discipline to stick to it. And by the way, yes, Stotts can scheme and does have game plans and has made some adjustments. So, even though they haven't come as fast as maybe I'd like them to, I just want to give him some credit there. But Nikola Jokic has been averaging, I don't have it in front of me, something like 3 or 4 assists a game. That's or maybe even less. That's half of his season average, maybe a little bit less than half. Like, the best passing big man in the history of the NBA, with apologies to Arvydas Sabonis and perhaps Bill Walton, but the best passing big man in the history of the NBA is being choked out of his most bankable skill. And to Jokic's credit, he's been responding with amazing shooting, right? He's been scoring and been picking it up on that end. But a lot of that does have to do with Nurkic. So Nurkic playing as well as he is right now, I wouldn't say a single thing to him. So I'm going to just sidestep the premise of the question and ignore it altogether.
Nicely done.
Yeah.
Nicely done.
It's a very slippery government answer from one Brandon Goldner.
Yep.
Okay, so the game is tomorrow. I'm excited. Yes.
Denver is 1.5 point favorites. I did look this up,
okay.
And the ESPN Basketball Power Index has Portland with only a 47.1% chance of winning the game.
Only basically a coin toss. I think that's right. I think it's going to be close. It seems as though Denver has slightly overperformed their talent level on the whole in this series, I think. And despite that, when you do look at the plus minus of these 4 games, again, yet another thing I don't have in front of me, but I'm fairly certain that the Blazers have scored more cumulative points in the series than the Nuggets by a decent chunk, despite the fact that it's tied 2-2. And that's something that we pointed to during the regular season, saying, the Blazers, their net rating is only like a +1 and some change, even though they've won this many games. So they're really overperforming their point total. Well, the Nuggets are overperforming their point total by being tied 2-2. This should be 3-1 Blazers, I think. So to me, I think the Blazers have structural advantages. They have more places they can pivot. They have more adjustments they can make. Stotts may have been slow to make some of them. He's made them. It's now up to Denver to adjust. And look, I think if the only adjustment from Denver is that they play with more energy, they try to muck it up, I think the Blazers know how to handle that. They have the playoff experience, specifically against this team in the past. They've gone 7 games with this team, even though it's maybe different than it is now. So I'm rambling, but I'm excited. And Denver minus 1.5, that sounds about right. Coin toss. So, yeah, I'm not mad at that.
Yep. Tomorrow's game, a lot of yelling, a lot of hooting and hollering, a lot of screaming.
What time is the game?
6.
Okay. That's a reasonable hour. Okay.
Not that anybody in Denver will be able to watch it, but
Oh, yeah. First of all, because they don't have the fans, but then second of all, because their local broadcasting and national broadcasting are having.
This was a thing back in the 2019 Western Conference. How has nobody fixed something in 3 years?
Money, greed,
bastards,
contracts. I mean, that's why a lot of people. Sorry, I'm chewing ice again because I'm just sweating. Ryan, a lot of very reputable people who care a lot about the NBA and would otherwise pay actual money through completely legitimate channels to support it have to revert to other means. If they don't have cable, they have no other way to watch the games, well, they have to find other ways to do it. And that's just what happens, right? So, give people the option to conveniently and easily pay some money to watch these games. Let's, whatever. Anyway, okay, I'm excited for Game 5. Do you have any last thoughts, any final thoughts, bold predictions or hot takes?
Got nothing. I think I've said all my hot takes and bold predictions.
Well, that is one successful episode with 0 notes. Good work. If you want to reach out to us, you can always do it. I'm at GoldnerPDX on Twitter. You can also reach the podcast at Like the Blazers or at WeLikeTheBlazers.com. Please subscribe. Leave us a rating if you can. Ryan, where can people find you?
At the Witty Ryan on Twitter, and my home address is. Oh wait,
don't do that. I like how you're making fun of my over enunciation. How dare you? It's one last thing, and I'll let you go. That I listened to an interview. I'm gonna keep it nameless, but like the over enunciation thing. I understand why it's important, and I actually have been trying over time to work on my enunciation because it's easier to listen to if people can understand the distinction between your words. All I'm going to say is that sometimes people maybe take it a little too far. I don't know. So anyway, shout out to all the communications professionals doing your best. Appreciate all of you. Excited, and go Blazers.
Go Blazers.